Okay, good morning everybody. I am going to go ahead and do each one of these on my own so that if you have trouble in the future, you have this as a guide. So input output area of a right angled triangle, write a program that reads the length and the base. So I have something that reads the base. Now just to review what this does, it reads in input and it changes whatever it is into an integer. So if I'm going to do math with any data, I need it to be either an integer or a float. So this changes into an integer. And my input is just takes information from right over here from my user, which gets sent in as text. So in order to do math with it, we can't exactly do math with text. So we do int input, the same thing for the height. And essentially, you want to do the math. Now, if you don't know the formula, you could just do something like area equals base times height all divided by 2. And we don't want to do the integer division. That's what I did last time when I showed you this. And I want to do it like that. So I can just print area. So this takes some value. We're going to do some math. We're going to store the results of it in area, and we're going to print it. Okay, let's run our tests. It passes all my tests. Now, this is how we run our program. It just asks for the base. So 6, 6, 18.0. So when you're troubleshooting, if it doesn't work, try and run your program so you can see what the issue is. All right, so that's 1.2. Let's run over 1.3. 1.3, the instructions are write a program that greets a user by printing the word hello, a comma, the name of the user, and a wink emoji. So we're going to take input from our user, call it Sahib. Now, sorry, that's the example. So a lot of errors that sometimes students make the following error. Uh-oh. Dismiss. What's happening here? There we go. So sometimes people think, oh, Sahib is the input. Maybe I should do it like this. Name equals input. And then they put something like this. Sahib. Error number 1. Can't enter in something over here. That'll be read as a variable. And then what they do, they say print, name, for example. And when they run their program, it doesn't work. Or sometimes they realize, oh, wait, maybe this has to be a string. Input. And it says Sahib, and they think everything's fine, but it's actually waiting for input. It's just how input happens to work, is that this in here is what the user gets prompted with. So we don't want to do it like that. In fact, if we enter ABCD, we see that ABCD is what's stored in name. If I say name over here, ABCD is what's stored in name. So essentially what we want to do is we want to take in a name as input. Now, you might be tempted, because you've done it so many times, to put an int and wrap this input. We call it wrapping because it's like a wrapper, right? We have opening and closing brackets. We're wrapping input with this int function. We're changing it into an integer. Don't do that because we don't need to do any math with the name that gets entered in. So we just say name equals input, and we print name, for example. So if I say Wissam, now what's stored in name is Wissam. So whatever gets entered from our user gets taken from the console and stored in name. And then when we print name, it's basically whatever got entered from the user, and that's how we take it in. But we don't want to do that. We want to print hello Sahib. So what we don't want to do is just randomly decide, not randomly, but copy and paste, and actually run our tests. What's interesting here is that I passed one test. And the reason is because one of my test cases is Sahib. So this is my test case. Input is Sahib. Hello, Sahib. It passed. But if my input was Mr. Potter, hello, Mr. Potter, does not pass. Okay. So what do we have to do? Well, we have to replace this. Instead of Sahib, there's many ways to do this. So take a look. Instead of, oops. We could just add our name. So we say hello, comma, space, plus name, plus the rest of our string. And we could say run the tests, and it all runs. So if I say Wissam, hello Wissam, wink, emoticon. Okay, so another way to do it that I taught you in one of the videos was the following. I did this, and then I said dot format name. If I run it, it still works. Tests also all pass. Now this is an old way. When I made the video, this hadn't come out. So there's something called f-string that I mentioned yesterday. Here we go. F. We put an F in here, and we don't have to put dot format name. What we can do is we can write name in there. So hello, exactly our text, exactly as it appears, and put an F in front of the string, and then Python knows to put whatever stored in name instead of this little text right there. So I could say donkey, hello donkey. Run the tests, and as you can see, our tests pass. If I say Lord Voldemort, it says hello Lord Voldemort. So let's see the results. This is our input, and our expected output is exactly the same. So that's 1.3. Let's go to 1.4. Okay, so write a program that reads an integer number and prints the previous and next numbers. So once again, we got to take in a value. Now we read a value. Let's call it a proper name, not A, like num. It's a number. Num is appropriate. And give it proper names, not just A, B, C, D. So what do I want to print? Well, I want to print something like this. The next number, print. So I'll show you two ways to do this. So I want to print the following, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and print, make this a quote. You can highlight it and just put the quotation mark. All right, so of course the number is not necessarily going to be 179. So let's use f-string first. So I'll use f-string. Instead of here, I want number. And then instead of 180, I probably want something like print, or sorry, next equals num plus 1. Yes? And then I'll say next. And that's how you do it with f-string. If we wanted to do it with concatenation, well, by the way, let's run this program. Let's say 117. The next number for the number 17 is 18. And the previous number for the number 179, obviously, we need to change these numbers, right? So let's do it with concatenation. And it's a good idea to do it like this, to learn this, because we're kind of manipulating our types on our types of variables. So we can say something like, oh, sorry. Whoops, get that here. So instead of that, I want a plus num plus, oops, plus. And that's why f-strings are kind of fun, because it removes the complication of adding all these pluses. So let's run our program again. 17. So the next number for the number 17 is 18, and I can only concatenate a string, not int. Now, num, which was an integer. Now, the problem is when we try and join it, we want to turn this back to a string. It can't join an integer. So what do we have to do? We have to wrap it. I use that terminology again. And str, we're going to make it a string in this case. So let's run this again. Say 17. The next number for number 17 is 18. The previous number for number 17, so I got this num right here to say 17, but I don't have a previous number yet. So I can say previous, or prev, equals num minus 1. And I can say, instead of 178, I can say plus previous. And if I run my program, you can guess what's going to happen. If I say 17, I have an error, and it's the same thing. It says line 10 right here. Print the previous number for the number string is previous, can only concatenate string, not int. Once again, this is a string, an integer right here, because we did some math with it, right? We did num minus 1 is previous. Let's wrap it with an int. Oops, not int. We're going to change it to an str. String 17. So it's 16. And notice that I have no space there, so you have to add a space. Now be careful. A lot of common errors I see with students is they'll add the space here. Oh, there's a space. But this is just code. This is the text, right? And it's actually color-coded so you can see better. There you go. And if I run my program, there we go. And if I run my tests, I know it also passed my tests. Okay, so apple sharing. Let's do this really quick. 1.5, I have a bunch of students, so let n represent the number of students. Okay, I don't really like doing that with n. So how many students do I have as input? I take my students first, and then I take and then I take the number of apples. You know what? I don't like n and k. You don't have to follow my instructions. Let's name it good names. Okay? So now this is just something I put so that you could see that this is regular division, float division. Now what I want is how many apples does each person get? Well, apple per stew is equal to apples divided by stew. And you know what? Let's just print Control C. So if I have 20 apples and 2 students, oh, I meant we're supposed to, of course, if we have 2 students and 20 apples, you have 10, but I don't need a point anything. I just need integer division. In fact, if I say 2 students and 21 apples, I divide by 10.5, but I'm not worried about half apples because one is going to stay in the basket. So, and where am I getting that from? All apples are distributed to the students evenly. The remaining indivisible part remains in the basket. How many apples will each student get? How many apples will remain in the basket? The program reads a number n and k in order. It should print the 2 answers for the question above. Okay, so yeah, so I guess I could word this question a little bit better. I always say I will, but I never do. So basically, I want to do integer division. So this is the difference between integer and regular division. So double slash. And now I have apples per student. And the remainder, let's get rid of that. Remainder is equal to apples modulus student. So if I divide apples by student, this will give me the remainder, this modulus, which is the percent sign, which is shift 5. So print remainder. So if I have 2 students and 21 apples, I expect 10 each and 1 remainder. Let's see our file, run our tests, and they all seem to pass. We're good to go. All right, let's go to... Now, a common error is that someone will take the apples first or the students first. That's a common error made on this. It's not the best question. I should really fix it. But let's move on for now. Okay, so this one is given a number of seconds that's passed. Actually, you know what? I'll start this for a new video. Let's pause.